Well, hello and welcome to all of you that are listening or watching to another episode of the Reiki Lifestyle podcast. Colleen and I are super excited today because we have Alva Cronin here. I'm going to say hi, Alva.
Hi, Robin. Hi, Colleen. Thank you for having me.
Welcome. Alva is joining us from Ireland. So it's always really exciting. We love all of our guests, but it's always fun to hear people from other places and to also, kind of know what's going on in where they live with Reiki and hear all about that. So we're excited about today's conversation. So just most of you kind of know where to find us at this point. You can find us at reikilifestyle.com. Colleen and I teach Reiki classes about once a month. So we teach ICRT Animal Reiki 1 and 2 and Master every other month. And then Colleen teaches Human Reiki 1 and 2 and Master, that's Holy Fire. World Peace, Reiki 1 and 2, and Master about every other month, and then Karuna Reiki a couple times a year. And actually, she has a Karuna Reiki class coming up in February. So if you want to check that out, I don't think she teaches again until the end of the year. So if you've been thinking about taking Karuna, it would be a good time to check that out.
Okay. I think I actually teach it in June again, too.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, so you can find all of that information at reikilifestyle.com. One of the things that we do that we like to always talk about is our free distance Reiki shares, which are Tuesday mornings from 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. Pacific time, where we talk about different Reiki topics. We give and receive Reiki with each other. So that's a really fun thing. It's, like I said, it's free and open to all experience levels. So even if you just want to check Reiki out and want to see a little bit more about what it's about, you can always join us. It's super casual. And so we'd love to see you there. You do have to sign up, and that is also on our website. And then our social media is Facebook, Instagram. Colleen's is Reiki Lifestyle, Reiki Lifestyle Official. Mine is Robin Benelli Reiki. And I also have a TikTok, kind of. Not quite yet. I'm getting there. And then we have a YouTube channel, which is at Reiki Lifestyle. So anyway, so that's kind of all about us. Colleen, I don't think I gave you a chance to say hi.
Hi, everyone. That's fine.
Yep. All right. Did I cover everything, Colleen?
I think so.
I think so. Yeah. Okay, so now on to talking about Alva. Just to introduce her a little bit. Alva Cronin is an Irish author and Reiki Master. She runs her own Reiki practice in the beautiful county of Kildare, Ireland for the last 15 years, where she lives with her husband and 3 teenage children. She teaches all levels of Golden TeraMai Reiki and Akasha Seichem. She has written her first novel called The Bridge of Now. The novel is a beautiful, heartwarming story about 3 generations of a family. The Bridge of Now is an irresistible work of storytelling about a family. The story begins with Laura, who leaves her abusive marriage, taking her toddler son Daniel with her. Inventive, magical, and uplifting, this novel is alive with unforgettable characters and tells the story of Daniel's upbringing following his childhood, relationship with his parents, and also a mystical older woman named Elba, who winds her wisdom into his heart and the hearts of his wife, Anna, and their children. Filled with simple wisdom that will touch your heart, The Bridge of Now will open you to new insights about love, relationships, and reflections on the passing of time. You can explore and integrate the visionary and metaphysical teachings held within the story with the addition of an interactive guidebook at the back of the book. Alva has developed a successful online course grown out of the wisdom of the novel, which she teaches. And then her information, her website is alvacronin.com. Facebook is Alva Cronin. Instagram is at Alva11. And her email, if you have any questions or anything like that, is alvacronin@gmail.com. And how you spell that is ALVAGH, and Cronin is CRONIN. So that's how you can find her. And then also, Alva, where can they find your book?
My book is on Amazon.
Okay.
It's on Amazon. Yeah, I published the book with, I did a course actually with Kathleen McGowan. Do you know Kathleen McGowan, who wrote The Expected One and The Poet Prince? And yeah, so I did a course with her, and my publishers are American as well. They're Flower of Life Press, her publishing company as well, with another lady, Astara Ashley. So yeah, so I did the course with, so I'm very, au fait with my American sisters now, because I did that course, for the year with them while we were writing the book. Kathleen McGowan is extraordinary. She really is. But I really feel like as if I've been completely introduced now, Robin. Thank you. That's a very comprehensive introduction.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. What's interesting, Alva, too, is that when it's like I read your bio before, but when I was reading it this time, it kind of occurred to me that we actually have 3 generations, actually 4, actually, if we can count Nana, who's now in the spirit realm, of Reiki attuned people. So obviously Colleen and I are mother and daughter. I was attuned with my grandmother back when I was 14, 15, somewhere around there. And then my daughter, Luna, is very into Reiki. And I was only pregnant with her 2 weeks when I took a Karuna class with Colleen, and she wanted to be attuned in the womb, which she told Colleen and I separately in one of our experiences. And then we kind of like shared our experience. Like she told me this, and we had like the exact same experience. And that she was really excited to be 3rd generation Reiki Master, essentially. So it kind of just connected the dots when I was reading through that, how interesting all of these connections end up with people. So,
And
well, your mother-in-law is also a Reiki master.
True. Yes.
I learned about Reiki too, distance Reiki, from her mother-in-law before she and her husband were even married. So our granddaughter has it from a lot of different sides.
Yes, definitely. And what age is Luna now?
She's 6.
6.
Yeah.
Oh.
She's so connected to Reiki. She asks for it every night. She, in her own way gives Reiki, especially to animals and to her garden and all of that thing. So anyways, it just kind of occurred to me, but I'd like to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself too.
Thank you, God. That is lovely. That's lovely. I have a daughter as well, who she did when she was younger. She wanted the attunement, but I thought she was too young. I think foolishly now that I look back on it, but it was probably more to do with my story, which I'll tell you now. And now she's just 17 and she's just saying, yeah, soon. So I'm just waiting for her to kind of click back in. It'll probably be in her 20s, but she makes crystal jewelry and has a beautiful relationship with the crystal kingdom and everything. So it's all there in her, and there are so many different ways. But I came to Reiki, to tell you about my story, I came to Reiki literally just after having my 3 children. And I became quite sick. I was very virally. And I did have, after I got married, I was working very, in corporate job and all of that, and teaching and training, and fairly strung out, I suppose, really in what was happening, the Celtic Tiger here in Ireland. So it was all about making money and getting a second house and all that nonsense. So I was kind of burnt out. And when we tried to have children, we had 2 miscarriages, unfortunately, but it focused my mind. And I really, in the 3 years that I was pregnant with my 3 children, who are now 16, 17, and 18, I was almost held in that kind of 3 years of grace, of birthing and being in that other place of, bridging and bringing children here. So after my youngest boy arrived, to 16 now, I really kind of crashed. Not so much like physically. Emotionally, I was fine. Spiritually, I was full up. I was really loving my role and everything. But physically, my body, I just kept on getting like virally and post-viral syndromes, and I'd end up in bed for the afternoon, and one of my friends sent me to a healer, and I went to a Reiki healer, Colleen O'Neill, who lives just close by to me. We're still close friends. And I really, in that Reiki session with him, felt like as if he was taking off a wetsuit of, I don't know, darkness or something. I don't really know how to describe it, other than that I crawled in and I laughed my way home. I literally knew that I was better, you know, that it was, I had been released from something. And I remembered him lighting some sage and opening a window. And I could see his wife, Anne-Marie. We were in a cabin down at the end of his garden. And I could see his wife, Anne-Marie, in at her kitchen window. And I said, tell Anne-Marie to close her window. Joking, because, you know, of whatever has come off me, I don't want her to get it. And he looked at me and he said, did you feel that? And I said, feel what you just took off me? I said, absolutely, I felt it. And he said, oh, Alva, he said, you're going to have to investigate this within yourself if you actually felt that, because he was just clearing, you know, my energy field, which had been clogged, and, you know, whatever else was there, but he certainly cleared. And I just remember being set free. And he said to me, I said, well, when is the next, what is this Reiki thing? What is it? And he said, it's spiritual healing. And I said, well, when can I do it? And he gave me the name of some, and straight away I did Reiki 1 in January, Reiki 2 in March, Reiki Master in September, and I was initiating in November. I was teaching in November. So it completely just was the thing that I had been waiting for almost, or that had been waiting for me. You know, it just changed my life. It walked into my life. And over the next, I suppose, 4 or 5 years, I became to understand that it was really, I was going to need it as my discipline. It was going to walk with me, you know, it was going to hold me to account as well. It wasn't a party trick, or it wasn't, you know, this is just, you know, this is going to make you psychic, or this is going to, you know, it wasn't like that. Whereas, and I had always been almost maybe afraid of that part of me, because we are all connected, obviously, and we are all holding old and ancient wisdoms. And I had a fear of that part of me. So Reiki helped to purify that relationship that I had with that part of myself. You know what I mean? That it sort of held my hand through it and kept me honest, you know, I understood straight away that it was precious, that it was grace, really, that it was, and that you couldn't abuse it. You know, that it just wouldn't work. It just would leave. You know, it just wasn't going to be present if you weren't going to be sitting in grace for it and understanding. And I say that even though I think that Reiki is amazing, because it really demands nothing of you. You know, when you look at a lot of the practices and you know, that are required, and things that are required before you do this and before that, Reiki just is pure love. It just wants to be where love is, and it wants to bring love to where there is no love. You know, it just wants to help. And that's what I love about Reiki. And it made my home. It made my, you know, it almost turned my home into a temple, like for my babies. You know, it was beautiful while they were very, very small. And it also held me to account. So I would have definitely, after my father died in 2008, I really struggled. And I really struggled with the bottle of Chablis. I really struggled with wine, you know, because I would be here, you know, pretending with my wine, pretending I'm French, you know, sniffing it, saying lovely, forgetting, of course, that I'm Irish. So I don't really care what smell or taste it is. You know, we Irish have a very complicated relationship with alcohol. So Reiki helped me with that, helped me to say, no, your channel has to be completely clear. And it wouldn't, so it just didn't allow it. Now, it took a while for it to leave, because I was in deep pain and trauma after my father died. He died very suddenly on operating theatre and unexpectedly. So it kind of spun me out a little bit. I've done some shamanic work with it since, and, you know, tried to get that aspect of me kind of back in home, and successfully, but it really unhinged me. And it didn't challenge my relationship with Reiki, but I did question why it didn't work. You know, why giving Daddy Reiki didn't make him stay. And my teacher at the time was very good. She said, Alva, you know, it's nothing to do with you, darling. You just, you know, you just added some fuel to his rocket. It's between each person and their maker when they leave and when they stay. And that taught me a very difficult, but a lesson that has held me in good stead in my practice. You know, that I understand that we are just merely channels, you know, and that whole thing of leaving everything in divine right order for the greatest good and the highest joy of all concerned may not be what we would choose. You know, it mightn't be what we might want. So that kind of really, I did my Reiki Master down in the south of France, which would be a kind of very high Magdalene country, you know, in the divine feminine. So I became very attached to that part of France, Carcassonne, and the story of the Cathar. And I met Kathleen McGowan, then the author. I met her down there in 2009, and we became kind of Facebook friends. And I'd always watched her tours of you know, Cathar country and Magdalene country, and the places where Mary Magdalene is said to have preached down the south of France. So just this year, I got to go on my first tour with Kathleen after I wrote the book with her. So I've always been, I suppose, you know, spiritually connected. I think, like I'm Irish. I'm pure Irish. I'm an Irish Catholic. I was raised in a Catholic household, not so much rosary every night or anything, but there would have been a big connection. And I always had a very good experience with my Catholic upbringing. You know, the nuns in school, they were nice. It was the lay teachers you'd to be afraid of, you know, in the 80s. And you know, any priest I ever met was always wonderful. And you know, I take myself off to Glenstall Abbey every now and then, a monastery down in Limerick, when I need my own retreat. So my relationship with kind of the Catholic Church has been positive, even though I am aware of, obviously, all of the corruption and the institutional abuse, etc., and no more so than as an Irish woman, you know, what has happened in Ireland over, you know, my devotion to Mary Magdalene in Ireland over the last 100 years. I mean, they actually incarcerated women in laundries called Magdalene laundries, which could you even just credit that? You know, in shame, like to shame them, and to, you know, for pregnant women to hide them away from society, like as if these women had got pregnant on their own. And, you know, poor Ireland is still trying to deal with the fallout of all of that. And it's very easy then for the Catholic faith has really crumbled here, because we have been shocked and shell shocked, just like the world, you know, just like all the way across the world. With the scandals and the abuse scandals, and yet there's something for me still very sacred in the relationship with the altar, you know. And I suppose it helps my own experiences with people in the Catholic Church, but also we have a beautiful old church here, just our local church down in Rathcoffey. It's 800 years old, and it's just a small little church kind of built by the kind of Protestant landowners 8 years ago for their Catholic workforce. And, you know, for 800 years, people have brought their babies and their wives and husbands and their dead and their, you know, they have brought their families into that little space, and it's so sacred. You can really feel it within the walls, you know. And I can also feel it in most churches, that kind of, you know, the way people come with their hearts open, you know, to light a candle for something, or they come with a prayer, and that connection. I don't know if you have an expression about throwing the baby out with the bathwater. You know, I feel that sometimes that can have happened, you know, with and everything is, there's just so many different facets to everything. And also I like to keep my place in the Catholic Church for women, for the feminine. In that kind of thing of not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, you know, I understand as well as any other woman on the planet what was done to us. I mean, we are the great granddaughters of the witches they burnt, you know, and we hold that same wisdom, healing ability, knowledge that was always, you know. So I think now is, I think you stand your ground a little bit. You know, I don't know if you find that hard. Some people find it hard to understand, you know, to link me in with my spiritual side, and then the fact that I am still active in my community, you know, because, and that is it as well. Like my parish church is very involved in the community. So it's where the people come to talk and to meet. It's a vital, and I just love that aspect. And every year my husband says to me, are you going to do that again this year? And I say, yeah, I am. So it still means something to me, you know, and that quietness of a church, and that connection with spirit, which of course you can have everywhere, but it makes a sound almost in the church, you know. And I love I love all of the churches down in the south of France as well, because they're all dedicated to Mary Magdalene, like openly, you know, they're all Mary Magdalene churches. So between, and I do understand that the Catholic, you know, monolith and the patriarchal structures, and, you know, is it ever going to change? Who knows? You know, I'm not going to sit around waiting for women priests or anything, but I suppose the new agey stuff as well, like the divine feminine and all that, keeps me in touch with both. So it just works for me, the two together, you know, and they have worked hand in hand. And, you know, no priest has ever said to me, you know, Reiki is evil or anything like that. They know what I do, and they know how dedicated I am to it. And I'm also very dedicated to Ireland and to our Celtic, you know, I mean, our pre-Christian spirituality in Ireland. So there's so much more to spirituality than just a religion or anything, you know, and everything is evolving. And just like Reiki, I'm sure that you find that as well, that the Reiki has changed over the last 2 decades, you know. Have you?
Definitely. Yeah, from a very strict, rigid, dogmatic practice into evolving into, well, the way I explain it, and I think this is also with what you're speaking of, even with your connection with the church, and of course being Irish myself, Irish ancestry myself, and that connection with the Catholic Church and being raised Catholic, and I know exactly what you mean by just the beauty of walking into the church and the connection to it. And so many of my ideas around it, you know, really integrate with Reiki, and of course my shamanic practices as well. And then, like you say, so much of it is that inner memory, our cellular memory that you're speaking of, in both the gifts and talents and the trauma that we have and we hold in that cellular memory. But as Reiki has evolved, and where I was kind of going with this, is I've always seen it or I see it today as when I first learned Reiki in 2000, It was still very much in that style of the outside authority, where someone else was the authority. They taught you what to do, how to do it. And if you didn't do it that way, it was incorrect.
Okay.
And so that was always, there was always that, again, kind of the same thing with that part of religion that had that same, like, they are the authority and I have to believe and do and say what they say I have to believe, which I loved the practice. I loved the spirituality of it.
Yes.
But that piece of it always felt off.
Yeah.
Now what I think has happened and is continuing to happen collectively and individually and spiritually is we have moved into the age of the inner authority.
Totally.
Where it teaches us how to get deep within ourselves,
Yes.
find our own inner truth, our own inner authority, and removing an intermediary that someone else has to tell us or be the connection for us.
Yes.
And that's the evolution I've seen in Reiki practices with many of the worldwide leaders that were practicing Reiki all the way back when, and also evolving with the energy of Reiki. And then also taking it back to 100 years ago with Usui Sensei and his practices of that deep inner connection with the divinity of the earth, the divinity within, his experience of asking to receive Anshin Ditsume, which was the spiritual peace, enlightenment of spiritual peace. And that's what he received, and Reiki is what answered. Yeah. So as we've seen its evolution over time and where we are today in the 21st century with it, all the different lineages have seemed to open into this place of honoring each other, unifying with each other, even if our traditions and how we teach the techniques about Reiki and how to use Reiki, there's an honoring that all the different ways are the right ways. Your way is the right way.
Totally. Yes.
So that's kind of my interpretation of having been working with it for the last 20 some odd years, and where I started with, like, boy, if you didn't do your hands exactly right, you got corrected.
Yes, don't have your hands here, and if you don't, I
Yeah.
know, as opposed to letting it flow. And I think that what you said there is so right about the inner autonomy, that the inner connection, like, it's so personal. And in so many ways, my relationship with Reiki worked with me to peel back, to be able to get to that place, to where yes, I'm completely aware of, the history of the Catholic Church, et cetera, and the present day Catholic, the hierarchical structures, et cetera, and the patriarchal structures, which I, don't approve of. And yet to be able to stand in a place where I want to create something different. So I'm not going to stand around wasting time in recrimination and get involved in any more karmic, swirls. We have to, I really do believe that we are here to create something new for the next generations, and that we are literally, Reiki really helped me understand this, that we are constant, but that we are fleeting through here. And we really need to do our best while we're here, because it is the place where we get our expression, like a little bit like when I started my Reiki journey, I got fascinated with all of, the numerology and the past life regression, and oh my goodness, and this was fabulous, and Reiki again kind of stood me up straight and said, Alva, it's not about a past life, it's about this life. It's about this life.
Right.
You know, it's we can't just spend forever thinking, oh, that's why this and this is why that. Look, this is where we are. This is the state of the place. And how can we allow love to, you know, transform us? Because it will, it wants to, you know, it really wants to. And I don't, like, I get great hope from some of the Martin Luther King readings, and, you know, I love the Marion Richardson stuff and the Clarissa Pinkola Estes, you know, that we were made for these times, and to not lose heart that we have everything we need with us to completely heal in this lifetime. And it again has shown me that when I became a healer first, I used to think, well, my husband got worried, first of all, because he said, oh my God, she's going to fill the house with, you know, because out of my need, because when we got involved in animal rescue, I filled the house with cats and dogs. So he said, oh my God, we're going to have people on the couch and we're going to be stepping over people, and she's just going to collect like she normally does. But it had a different idea for me, Reiki. And Reiki taught me that nobody actually needs me. You know, nobody really, people have everything they need with them to completely heal. And what Reiki has opened up, like, I spend most of my time bowing to people, like, with what they have and what they've brought to this earth with them. And, you know, the light beings that they have with them, the help they have with them, the struggles they have undergone that I couldn't even have imagined thinking about. And yet they are managed to do this stuff with grace. So it has taught me then not to be worried despite the state of the place, or despite how things may appear, or despite, you know, what we can be, what we're being fed, you know, obviously, because an awful lot of the media and a lot of what's going on in the world is trying to kind of separate us from our power, to believe that we are powerless, that we don't have a say, and that we can't fix everything, and that, you know, and what you said, Colleen, it's we have to fix ourselves, and that's our only job, is to go in, you know, is to go in and to have that true relationship with self. And then if everybody did that, there wouldn't be a problem. There would be no problems. But Reiki has taught me that, you know. And then, so I was, like I was saying earlier, an awful lot of the Reiki in Ireland is TeraMai Reiki, because Kathleen Milner, who, you know, owns the trademark for TeraMai, she came to Ireland in the early 90s and initiated an awful lot of, mostly women, but men too. And it's beautiful, actually. I said their daughters now, the daughters of these women who were initiated way back in 1990 are now being reinitiated into the golden TeraMai. It's, you know, the circle is, everything is circular, as they say. So an awful lot of the Reiki in Ireland is TeraMai, and I was TeraMai Reiki for, you know, all the way up until 2020. Because after I did Reiki Master, I went on to do Seichem. So Reiki, as you know, is the earth healing energy. And Seichem then comes along with TeraMai, and it brings in the other elements of air, water, and fire. And it just adds a different dimension to the healing. So I had Reiki Master. So I had been teaching Reiki 1, Reiki 2, Reiki 3 over the kind of 10, 12 years. And I had Reiki Masters who now wanted to learn Seichem. And I had forgotten how to, like, I always used it, but I had completely forgotten the initiation techniques. And I had lost contact with my own teacher who had taught me. So I contacted Kathleen Milner in June 2020, just emailed her saying, listen, the Seichem manual I have is 1996 copyright. I've had a marriage and 3 children since then. So I think that there must be an update. And fair play to her, she came back to me, and we worked all of that summer, June, July, right up until October 2020, while the pandemic was on in full steam, and we did the golden TeraMai. So the TeraMai had been kind of upgraded, inverted commas, by the golden Buddha with Kathleen. So we did the golden TeraMai and Akasha Seichem. And Akasha Seichem brings in the ether, an extra element of ether, which is really beautiful to work with as well. So 2020, so that really kind of re-established, I think, a new relationship again with Reiki, because the golden TeraMai was slightly different. Like all the different branches are slightly different, even though they're all the same, obviously, and it's all the same thing. But we do, along our lineages, I think, add something different to each one. Like Karuna Reiki is different to, you know, the traditional Usui Reiki is different to TeraMai, is different to golden TeraMai. So that has been fantastic over the last 2 years. It's almost like gave me almost a kind of like a kickstart. And it kickstarted me into writing the book in 2021 with Kathleen and Astara. And the book came about because I was always going to write a book, and I was going to write a book 25 years ago, and then something else happened and I never did it. But I had so many beautiful encounters with people over the years. And I had so many kind of stories that had grown out of my healing room, and so many, I'm real Irish, as you can tell. I love telling a good yarn. I love story, and I can chat for Ireland. But I would always find that like an analogy or a part or something would be good to get a point across for people, so that you're like explaining something maybe that might have happened to you and wrapping it up and giving it to them, as opposed to telling them, listen, you need to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It's as clear as the nose on your face. You know, that you kind of gently are able to talk to people so that they, you know, because people, and again, I know you two know as healers, people have really dreadful stories and really terrible, terrible things have happened to them. And you can't just, you know, shukare, 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 and that's it, it's gone. You have to acknowledge and honor the places where people have gone with total compassion, you know, and it's not according to your clock either, you know, 3 sessions, you should be better by now. That's not the way people work. Healing is not linear. It's, as you know, it's multi-layered, and we don't know where it's coming from. Again, you know, the body keeps the score, like the Bessel van der Kolk book. What's encoded in our DNA and intergenerational trauma, etc., etc., etc. So everybody is so it needs so much care and kind of time, I suppose, time. So I began to kind of tell stories to people. And I used to find that I had come up with these stories, say stories around boundaries that would work for everyone. You know, and I would find that I was telling the same story all the time and it was fitting into a lot of different people and helping a lot of different people do a lot of things. And then there, you know, I'd have like the caterpillar story, and I'd have different stories. And I said, I need to put these down in a book. And I didn't want to, because I don't have a doctor in front of my name. I felt, well, sure, I can't write a book, you know. I mean, I can't write a book. Like, who would I be to write a book? And I sat with Alva through that and said, okay, love, are you all right? Have you 15 years experience dealing with people? Yes, write your book. So Kathleen McGowan helped me with that as well. So I got these stories together, and then using some of the prompts on the writing course and whatever, this book just came out beautifully, called The Bridge of Now. And I wanted it to be, so I'll show you the cover of it. That's, so my friend, my friend Owen painted the painting for me. The painting is actually here in my room. I wanted this kind of a visual of a light at the top of the bridge, being possibly a place that we could imagine that we live. You know, that this is now, and this is where we are in this beautiful iridescent light, and we have the potential in our purity to stay there if we want to, which is what you can, you know, I suppose, which is what the Christed part of us knows, you know, that thing of forgive them, they know not what they do. And, you know, if you read anything about people who have gone through horrendous times, like if you read Nelson Mandela's Walk to Freedom, that even within their trauma, they still have that conviction and that they are safe and that they're okay. And I think that's what people need to feel, that they're safe. So I had this vision that we could be kind of here, that like a bridge is seen as a uniter, but also as a divider, you know, that it's a place between A and B, between the past and the future, and it's now. And we all know it's now, and it's always now, and it always has been now, and it always will be now, and we know that. But if you had a visual of something that you could make it a little bit closer to, oh, okay, I could visualize myself at life is kind of going over the bridge, but I have the potential to remain in my place of power. And sometimes when I would see people re-triggered by trauma, it would always have been that something happened to them, came and knocked them off their power. You know, that it, so they react then from the place of the wound as opposed to their place of power. So I wanted to bring kind of that message out, and then this whole story came out as I started to write about like a circle of life story, almost about the 3 generations of a family, which, as Robin said, you know, starts with a woman leaving an abusive marriage, Laura, and how she kind of goes home to her father, who isn't very welcoming. This would have been about maybe 60 or 70 years ago, who wasn't very welcoming. You know, she'd got married and she'd made her bed and all that kind of stuff, and how she managed that to raise her little son, Daniel, to be able to go on to have a successful marriage and relationship. And then we go through the next generation and the generation after that. And there's this little magic woman called Elba who walks in and out through the story, and she's kind of magical. There's something magical about her from the start. So she disappears and reappears, and she always has the wisdom pieces. So the little story about the boundaries, or the little story about the caterpillar, or the little, you know, to put things into context for people with what they're experiencing on their life journey. And, you know, there are themes within the book of that real people face, you know, themes of family, abandonment, abuse, a little bit of postnatal depression in there, a little bit of, you know, overwhelm after birth, a little bit of sorrow, but also kind of rebirth and growth. And that, you know, that amazing, yes, heartache, disappointment, grief, but that huge human attribute of like resilience, that the power to overcome, you know, being hopeful and accepting and striving to be better, and allowing, I think, you know, the love of a friend or a partner or a child to transform us and to enable us to do what we said we do. You know, like my teacher used to say to me years and years ago, when I'd be having a particular bad trauma or whatever, she'd say to me, Alva, it's just what you said you do. And it used to just, I was like, oh, I need a little bit more hand holding than that, please. And people do, I think, you know, I mean, yes, we do know logically, it's just what we said we do, that, you know, we agreed to be here during this immense time of huge change. But it's still, we still need that. We still need love, you know, we still need healing. We still need connection. We're not robots. We're humans, you know. So the book was lovely, and I loved writing the book. But I noticed that even my best friends were saying, well, yeah, Alva, yeah, I started it, but I fell asleep and I didn't, you know, I didn't get to read. I will read. I promise I'll read it. So I said, no, I don't necessarily want you to read the book. I want you to get the messages. And that was when I wrote the course. So I've written a course from it, which kind of it's a 6-week course. I believe that that there is a process to healing that we actually go through. And I have a little acronym. Do you want to hear my acronym?
Yes, and about the course too. It's fascinating.
I have an acronym for us. I believe that that we all go through this. It's the acronym is TREATS. TREATS. And I believe that the process of healing anything, big or small, goes through this acronym. So I've divided the course into 6 weeks, and week 1 is about kind of standing on the bridge of now and about introducing people to that concept of being potentially in a place of power with our thoughts, because our thoughts are all we can control, and thoughts are creation, actually. So it's kind of, we talk about that in week 1, but really the theme of week 1 is tell the story. You have to. You have no idea where you're going or what's up with you until you actually know what the story is. And you have to listen to yourself down to the very last detail, really, you know. And I truly believe as well, after working with people for so long, that we can only meet other people at the depth at which we've met ourselves. And the honesty with which we've looked in under the rocks and in the dark places, you know, because we are human, and we're all human, and we all have all of the potential for all of the human attributes within us. And I do believe that too, that, you know, we're often blessed and graced to have lived a life that, you know, I never had to murder anybody, or I never had to, you know, that's purely through grace and by the grace of God, because I have the potential, because I'm a human. And we know what humans have the potential to do, given any set of circumstances. So I do believe that one is tell the story. You have to sit with yourself, and get help if necessary, you know, get counseling, get healing, get whatever you have to do, but you have to know what you're dealing with yourself. You can avoid it for so long, but ultimately, wherever you go, you can go and live in Australia and you're going to meet yourself at the airport. So tell the story is number 1. The second one, then, week 2, is all about releasing the tension around things, releasing what no longer serves. Really looking at why we're kind of standing on mountaintops, involved in tugs of war, and, you know, what we're really getting out of our stressful relation, and what we can leave. You know, why is it important to us? Why is it important just to be right, or to win a battle, or to, you know, to really take ownership of that and maybe release it? And one of the things I think about in that is that in a tug of war, you know, the tension, if you let go, your opponent falls on his bum. You know, it's us that keeps us. It's that tension that keeps us there, going to die on that hill, you know, for nothing. So the release one, so they are hard. The first 2 weeks are hard of the course, telling the story and release. And the third week is about embody, TRE, because we have to get into our bodies. We are not embodied, you know, well, we are, but it's so easy to lift out because the horrors are so huge, and we are exposed to so much that in this generation, and even just in the last decade, that we were never supposed to see or know, or, you know, these poor optic nerves are stretched to their limit, you know, with the phone and the access to everything. You know, our optic nerves, we're just a couple of generations on from the caveman. Our eyes think that if we see it, we're there. So hence the massive levels of cortisol and overwhelm and stress hormone, and, you know, the constant fear mongering as well, all designed, I believe, specifically to keep us from our power. So the embody part is, and that's a week where there's a lot of teaching, a lot of Reiki 1 teaching, you know, where we go through the chakras and the colors, and what, you know, what's held in each chakra and what they mean, and what it's like when they're good, or what we're like when they're bad. And that really comes good. But I think, Colleen and Robin, that a lot of people get stuck there then. They think that's it. They've told the story, they've released, and they've embodied, and now they're fine, you know. And I did that for years, you know, thinking that, oh yeah, I'm better now, I'm grand now, you know, I'm fine. And I'd start again in another spiral. Like, it would just start again, telling another story, and I'll get stuck there in telling the story, releasing and embodying, as opposed to saying, how do I get out of this? And Reiki was the thing that helped me out of this, because I did struggle in my clearances, in particular of Reiki 2 and Reiki Master. And my sisters, I always remember them saying to me, Alva, why are you doing this to yourself? Like, you were lovely before. Like, why are you actually doing this to yourself? And I said, I don't know, but I know I'm getting out of a circle, like out of a hamster wheel. Now, I don't know whether that was karmic or soul or what, but I just knew that I was getting a new opportunity for something new. And this is what the week 4, 5, and 6 are about, the ATS. I believe we have to, after we've embodied, actively affirm and align with the energy of transformation. Like, we are hardwired to transform. You know, the Jungian, Carl Jung really believed that, like, and gave some amazing, you know, examples of backup for his theory that we are actually hardwired to transform. And I use in my novel the analogy of the butterfly. But we as humans, we don't actually, like, if a caterpillar lives long enough, the process will overtake him. He will turn into a butterfly if he lives long enough. But we don't have to. We can say, no, I'm not changing. And I think that's sometimes where we just get caught, and we go back again to tell the story, release, and embody. You know, and we think that's where because we can get busy because there's more and more, loads of stuff for us to do. And because we're actually afraid to go into the cocoon phase, and when you think about what the poor caterpillar has to do to get his wings, even though before he hatched as a caterpillar, as an egg even, he already had the imaginal discs to grow his wings. You know, he already, even before he hatched as a caterpillar, he knew how to fly, like within him, within his intelligence. And we do too. I believe that. But that we struggle at that point because we don't actually really like change. We like to be able to control what might happen and what the path will be. You know, and people, I'm sure you've come across it, will come to you, how many sessions until I'm better? You know, have you come across that where, you know, and will it be, when will I be better? And the whole thing is that there's nothing wrong with you. You're just experiencing. This is just life, you know, and you have within you the imaginal discs to be able to manage anything that is going on in your life. And it's just trying to understand that, I think. So that's week 4, affirming and aligning with the energy of transformation. So if you like, surrender, I suppose, acceptance, you know, into, okay, I need to get beyond this. I need to grow. I need to evolve. I need to do it for myself, for my children, for my grandparents. I need to do it for the whole lineage. And then the week 5 is T, try new things. So that's when we really work with kind of comfort zone, coming out of the comfort zone, like actively seeing over the fence what you want and climbing the fence. Because the fence will be full of things like, oh, I'm not good enough, or I shouldn't really, oh God, why do they want to talk to me? Like, I have nothing to say. It'd be all of those things that keep us kind of stuck back in. Sure, I'm sure transformation is for other people, but it's not really for me, you know, or whatever. But we have to actively try new things to move into new comfort zones and claim ground in which we're comfortable in. And this is what the pandemic has taught me. Like 3 years ago, I would not have had this conversation with you. I wouldn't have been able to. I thought that I could hide in my room with my candle and heal people one by one, nice and quietly, and nobody'd know what I was doing, you know. But we're called, aren't we? We're called out to speak and to raise our voice. And we're not saying anything wrong. We're just speaking about love and truth and healing. And then the S, the week 6, is about soar, the gateway to freedom, about actually moving into that new place then. And I really believe that treats is where it is. And sometimes, you know, when somebody's coming to me, I'm like, okay, we're at A. You know, I know where we are almost. With it, it's almost like a system that I've seen develop before my eyes over the years, you know. And some people, some people you'll always be telling the story with them because that's what they need. You know, it's not, I'm not saying, okay, now hurry up. It's EAT, come on, hurry. It's not that. It's, you always, like, you know, with Kuan Yin and with the violet flame, you always go to the person where they are. It's not about where you want them to be. But this is a nice structure that you can kind of put on the process. So the course then grew out of that. And then I have meditations with each week, which are very specific to what the teachings of that week are. And they've been beautiful, and little kind of bits of homework, you know, kind of just prompters and affirmations and different things. So that's been beautiful. I've loved doing that course. And I believe there's a second course coming, and there's also a second book. So I'm going to be busy. It's going to be a busy year, I hope, 2023. Yeah.
Is that the name of the course? What's the name of the course?
The name of the course is called Dance with Your Heart. The Bridge of Now, Dance with Your Heart. And I have this theory, again, that the heart dance floor is when we are, I might send this to you afterwards, that when we are in a very balanced place in our reaction. So say in our scale of reaction to something, of a trigger, say we're 1 to 10. If we're a kind of a nice balanced 5 or 6 on something, we're just accepting it. We're not saying whether we like it, you know, but we certainly aren't going to war about it. We're just saying, oh, look at that. You know, we're being the witness. When we're in that place in our scale of reaction, and when we're very high on our polarity within, on the Hermetic principle, you know, of high polarity, that everything on the planet is on a pole. So you can't have the existence of one thing without its opposite. So you've hot, cold, love, hate, or love and fear. You know, you have, but they're all, and you go to these states gradually within, you know, you have red and violet, north and south, you know, you just have opposites of everything. And there's such a design in the chaos, like red can't become east, you know, red on its way up its pole can only go through the colors of the rainbow up to violet. So there is that huge, beautiful order in things. And I look at the polarity within, when we're very high in our polarity on love, acceptance, tolerance, joy, and when we're in a balanced place in our reactive bit, that's where we dance with our heart. That's where we're free. But life is almost rigged to have us at a 9 and 10 or a 1 and 2 on something, and very low polarity. So if you look at that on a graph, you're out here, you know, you're so far away from the heart dancey place that this is the place of, and another thing, and another thing, and another thing, and another thing, when everything is low and reactive, and the war and Ukraine, and everything is like in on top of that. Whereas it's our personal responsibility and ability to move our polarity within high through healing and through acceptance and through active practice and through dedication, etc. And also to understand that our reactions to things are controllable as well. We can really, through, again, acceptance, that these are the attributes of human nature that we're just reacting to. So that's kind of really what the course, now it goes into much more depth, obviously, than that, goes through over a 6 weeks period. And it's lovely. And it's a real kind of coming together of everything I wanted to do with the book, you know, but that my best friends stopped reading on page 15. They didn't get through it, you know, but they got through the course. So that was it. And this is, I think, what Zoom has done as well, and the plus side of the pandemic, that we're much more able to reach out and meet people, you know, from our own homes. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the way that unfolded for you, and the as you were describing treats, you're right. It really almost puts it all into a system and a perspective of what we're doing, a certain level of order, even though, like you say, each person might be one might be at A and one might be at R and one may be at S and all of the different things. And it was interesting as I was listening and wondering, what each letter would represent.
Right.
I loved the last one, S, being sore. I expected it, or I had a flash of a thought, I should say, that it was going to be surrender.
Ooh.
And it was like, oh, sore. Yes, that's it. That's it exactly.
Yeah.
So what do you think is kind of coming through channeling for the next one too?
Well, the next one I know is called A Return to Grace.
Oh, I love it.
So I'm just really waiting for it. I'm also writing the follow-up to The Bridge of Now, and it's called Messages at Midnight. And it gets much more metaphysical than this book, because one of the characters in it, her grandmother and Elba, the old lady, are no longer present. So they have to be present in the owl. They have to be present in visits, and in the ether. So it is going to be much more like this book. Anyone could read it. Like my husband could read it, who has no interest in healing or anything even remotely like that. But he could read the book as, okay, yeah, this is a book about a family. And then you could read it, or a Reiki master or could read it and say, oh, I see what she's doing here. There's layers in it. So The Messages at Midnight, my next book, I have 3 chapters written. And I know that I think that the book is going to deliver the Return to Grace course as well for maybe for next year. I also want to do audiobook. I want to put The Bridge of Now on audio this year as well. And that all takes money and takes, I want to do all this, takes time and takes. So I'm just allowing it to kind of flow through and come through, and at the right time, these things will happen. And I also believe in the book. So the book will be heard when it's, there was a lovely healer on Facebook, Chloe Folan, who called it my soul book. And I just loved that when she said that, The Bridge of Now. Oh, well, good luck with the course on your soul book. And I thought, oh, yeah, my soul book. Yeah.
I love that. Well, because of course I love Kathleen McGowan's books too. And just for anyone that isn't familiar with her, she wrote The Expected One, The Book of Love, Poet Prince, and others. And so much about the story of Mary Magdalene and the Cathars in France.
Yes.
So your relationship then with Mary Magdalene, how has that kind of come in with Reiki and merged together just in your own personal spirituality, the books, courses?
Just so powerfully, so
Yes.
powerful. From when I went down to do my Reiki Master in just outside Carcassonne in 2007, from then on, I didn't, again, like being raised an Irish Catholic, I had a very strong connection to Mary, the Mother.
Yes.
We had a lot of, and I thank, because I always had a beautiful connection with her, but we were wrongly told, of course, that Mary Magdalene, rather than being the apostle of apostles, that she was, the shamed woman, out of whom 7 demons had to be cast, etc., 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 and all this nonsense. And even though they apologized, they kind of did it like this, they didn't really say it out loud. They kind of said it into their hands and, scratched their faces then and walked away. Allowing, again, for even in Ireland in the 60s and 70s, for Irish women to be locked up in these Magdalene laundry prisons. So when I went to Carcassonne, I remember getting off, and almost like getting off the plane onto the tarmac, because it's just this tiny little airport in the south of France, in Carcassonne, and this being enveloped almost by the divine feminine. I knew then what the divine feminine was. I always knew that I was working with the goddess, but I felt more connected to Eru, to Ireland and to Bridget, to our Celtic goddesses. And I didn't know much about Mary Magdalene. I experienced her first. That was really what happened. She just embraced me. And then I have on my altar here a beautiful painting, like just a little sketch that I found at a market. I'll just show it to you here on screen. Years ago, and every day since that day, 15, 16 years ago, I light a candle to her. I don't know if you can see that.
Yes. Oh, that is beautiful.
She is just stunning, and she is Magdalene to me. Although it says on the back Madonna, but she's Magdalene to me. So then they, the Divine Mother and Mary Magdalene really I started to kind of explore Kathleen McGowan's books and, what we knew about what had happened, what had actually been documented from the time of the crucifixion and everything. So Magdalene really, I felt, as an example of what you can endure and still love so purely. She exemplifies that for me. Not just physically endure in your life, but to have to move and leave everything you know, and to be able to go and evangelize almost a complete country, as Kathleen McGowan says, she is badass, like, as well. So she's not, she is, of course, but she is dogged, and I feel that her energy within all of the work that we are doing, that women are doing now, and it is to vindicate our grandmothers and great grandmothers and all the women all the way back to Magdalene and beyond her, who were, demonized, like the demonization of beauty, like all the way back to Eve, let's be honest, and that whole story that it was all our fault. Everything is our fault because we knew something, and yet to have the power and the ability to love, which women do, because we love our sons and our daughters equally, so that is the power of what is within the divine feminine, and it's within every woman and every man. Like, the divine feminine is within all of us. So Magdalene, I don't channel her or talk to her or anything like that. I just feel her. I feel her presence always in the south of France. I'm very much at home. Like, I immediately go to that place, the heart dancey place, when I go to the south of France. I'm like, I don't react. People could do. I say, okay, that's fine. I'm happy. So I feel very much like as if I'm off. Whereas I know, this might sound silly, but I know, and even when American healers come to Ireland, they say, oh my God, how do you live here? Because Ireland is tough. Like, Ireland is hard. And what Ireland has been going through in the 50 years since I've been here, like, it's tough. So I sometimes feel when I get to the south of France, I feel that softness, whereas there's that warrior thing in Ireland, south of France, and Mary Magdalene just embraces me with pure love when I go there. And being there with Kathleen McGowan last June was...
I'm going to be Googling it and seeing when she's going next. After I read her books, it was like, I have to go to the south of France. I need to go to these places. And it's fascinating as you're sharing your experience. I would say I haven't had a deep experience with Mary Magdalene. However, my baptism was in the church, St. Mary Magdalene.
Wow.
And that kind of came back to me because I, for one, did throw the baby out with the bathwater initially, and now am returning to some of those spiritual relationships with, say, Jesus and Mary, and Mary Magdalene. And I only really let go of them temporarily. But when I received an ignition, the initial ignition to Holy Fire Reiki, one of the things that it did was it came in and transformed my initial baptism. And it did it without, like, I observed this. I didn't plan it. It was just something that I observed. And what it said was, and what I heard at the time, was that I knew before I was born that I would be born into these relationships with these beings of the light and these teachers of the light. And so what it did was adjusted my baptism for the parts of it that were not accurate to me, and left in the connections that were accurate. And so I'm still in the place of relearning that. And the way you describe Magdalene, I would also have to say, I have that feeling.
Yes.
Rather than a knowing, rather than say a relationship in the same way that I do with Mother Mary or even with Jesus.
Yes.
Where for me with them, there's a dialogue and a relationship and an ongoing connection. But with her, the way you describe it now, I think that's what that is. That's what that is. And it's very authentic within. It's very much that just inner awareness.
Yes.
I'm curious about that. Do you think that that has anything to do with the fact that it's just recently that this relationship has been able to change? Whereas like with Mary, Jesus, obviously they've been revered throughout history by, certain sects of religion and that kind of thing. Or do you think that that's just part of the energy that she carries? Or do you think that it's a remembering of her, as it has the idea of her and basically like kind of in a lot of the world, obviously not in the south of France, the remembering of her is basically within the last generation, maybe two generations, that it's shifting the relationship as people are moving more and more into, and I'm genuinely curious because I was not baptized, and I don't have a strong connection to Christianity or Catholicism as an institution. And so I'm genuinely asking the question about your opinions isn't the right word, but your ideas around that.
To me?
Yeah, either of you.
Or either of, yeah. Well,
But
I
specifically, since you've, had such a relationship with her.
Yes, and I think so I would be one of the, like, as you say, it's just in the last 2 generations that we've heard that, oh really, oh, she wasn't a prostitute, oh, I see, oh, okay, she was the apostle of the apostles, oh yeah, right, okay, so she was. And then the discovery of the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, which is a dynamic piece of work, even though we only have 9 pages. They are talking serious quantum physics, like in the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. But it's none of this nonsense like that we have been allowed to read. She brings forward, there are in the Gospel, there are so many teachings of the Master that are so relevant now, and hopefully the rest of the Gospel can be found. I don't know if it ever will, obviously. But to answer your question, sorry, Robin, I believe that, is it important to go to France to experience it? And I would think that yes, it is, because it was never forgotten there. It was never not known there. Like when you see in Provence, and when you see the lineage of the Cathar, and how it was the only crusade of Christian against Christian, where they were so dangerous because they were followers of Mary Magdalene and followers of the way, and the way of love, which spoke about just what your mom started this podcast with, that we are all free. We are all sovereign. That's a very, very dangerous thing to put into the hands of millions and millions of people.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that it crystallizes in you in France, or reading about reading the Jean-Yves Leloup version of the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, reading about the Cathar, reading about the it will rekindle something in you, because we all know, like, everybody knows everything. I truly believe that. We all know everything. There's nothing that isn't known. And it rekindles a memory in you that just, even if you can't explain it, it makes you feel happy. It makes you feel seen. It makes that part of you kind of just be vindicated. And that, I think, without, any aplomb or clapping or anything, you're just saying, okay. You just know that that's more. Yes, 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 yes. And that we're closer and closer and closer. And who knows where the tipping point is, really. We just have to keep going and keep doing our work. Because, some people say we're beyond the tipping point and it's just all over bar the shouting. But, there is a lot of shouting, and we have to be kind, and we have to remember that it's our own sovereignty that counts, and that we have to keep our hearts about us during this time. So I would say the French have the answer. And the lands in France, to walk those lands, to walk those caves, to go to Saint-Baume, to go to the places where it is known she was. You can just feel it. You can just feel, and everybody you meet knows, and everybody knows. And it's just wonderful.
Just fascinating, because again, that inner calling, that inner, like, oh, I need to go there. And I think I read those books back in maybe 2015, somewhere in there. And that same.
Kathleen has a new book out about Anne Boleyn.
Oh.
Boleyn Heresy. Yeah. Beautiful book. And it really talks about how throughout the royal courts in France, particularly, they raised women in the way, and that Anne Boleyn was raised actually by some of the most important women in France in the way of love, which was passed down from Magdalene. So yeah, Kathleen is very active now. So it would be, Colleen, you should definitely try to get to France this summer, if you can. Or now she goes she says she'll go to France every year with people. She'll bring people to France forever, I think. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It is now high on the bucket list.
It's interesting, Colleen, about that is I took French in high school here. That's like, you have to take a language in high school here. And I was pretty obsessed with Provence, probably in those timeframes, Mom. So I wonder if there is some connection there. Like, I had a book on it. I wanted to go there. And
Provence is where she came into.
Yeah, so that's interesting, of that energy. You even bringing, I don't know why, most people who take French are going to be interested in Paris, some of those kinds of places. But for me, it was always Provence. But I would imagine you starting to read those books, Colleen, I would have been in, oh no, you said 2015.
I don't remember. It's been a while.
Yeah, because
I don't remember, because it was an awakening, and with Mary Magdalene. And now I think about it too. And so the church, and that's what made me realize that I had been baptized in the church named Saint Mary Magdalene. And now I think about it, and when was she a saint? And, or when was she sainted? How long ago did that happen? And that church, so if I'm 65, the church was there well before me. So it's been a while, at least.
Yes.
Oh, you have just brought up a whole new.
I would have graduated. I graduated in 2002, so it was must have been well.
So it had to have been before that. Then.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah,
Wow.
bringing up a whole thought process, Alva.
A
Yes.
whole new thing we get to use Reiki
And
to
also
heal.
maybe we
Yeah.
can just go to the south of France because I've always wanted to go there.
Yes, yeah, no, but it is like I do believe that the divine feminine is flowing through the Reiki though, like so in her wisdom and everything, you know. Like I know Reiki is Japanese, and I understand all of that, but I know that what we bring to it, and as part of the evolution of Reiki in the West, the divine feminine, and the Western woman. Didn't the Dalai Lama say that the world will be saved by the Western woman, because I suppose we're, inverted commas, free. They can't burn us at the stake anymore. We're back. so I think maybe it's that, and that to try to keep our hearts as pure, to allow her to flow through, and to allow the sacred masculine, to allow the whole, to allow us to become who we truly are as a tribe and as a humanity, but also with Kathleen Milner, I last year or the year before maybe got the old cartouche, the ancient Egyptian consciousness initiations, which I again have been using in my healings, but I feel sometimes haven't fully integrated. And I'm going to Egypt with Kathleen McGowan in March.
Oh, I'm going in September.
Oh, are you? Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. So Egypt is, I never knew it was on my bucket list until I got the initiations, and I started to feel, oh, okay, Egypt. I thought that I was finished once I, got to France, and no, Egypt. So back to, I'm going to, so you're going as well later in the
I
year.
am. It's with a shamanic group.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So it's all happening, Colleen. Yeah.
it's awesome. Well, I also want to take a little bit of time. You did mention the past 50 years in Ireland being so hard. Can you talk a little bit about that, and what is happening with Reiki in Ireland? And we get some information about it, but not from your perspective living
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Well, Reiki is very, very strong in Ireland. Very strong. Now, it would still be considered a little bit woo-woo.
Yeah.
But the Reiki Federation of Ireland now have managed to they have a thing with Irish Life Health, so with the health, so that you can start to get part of your payment for a Reiki session back. So that's big progress.
Yeah.
That's big progress. So there would be an active Reiki Federation in Ireland. There would be an active yoga, very big yoga community, huge crystal and kind of magic fairy stuff. But it's kind of underground. And I noticed, Colleen, that 25 years ago, when I was kind of starting on this road, there were angel shops on every corner. And you could buy the Barbara Ann Brennan book, Hands of Light, and you could buy all the Louise Hay stuff in every bookstore. And, and the Dan Millman, the numerology, like the Seeker was really very catered to, the Julia Cameron, the Artist's Way, all of that was very available to us. And it's like as if about 10 years ago, everything shut down. It's really quite strange. There's no angel shops. You have to go searching for everything. You have to Google everything. You have to Amazon everything. There's nothing. Now, I don't know if that's just, a sign of the times that we live in and the way the markets have gone and that, but at the same time, even with that having diminished, there are much more like Reiki practitioners and really good Reiki practitioners, and people like, I was talking earlier on to a monk in Glenstall Abbey who was saying, probably Reiki should be mainstream. And I said, do you think? And he said, yes, I do, and because we do need it. We do need it. And I believe what happens, like he was asking me, what happens in Reiki? And I said, well, I believe you get the mental body, the spiritual body, the emotional body, and the physical body into the same room, and they shake hands. Probably for the first time in however old you are, you know. And she was like, wow, God, that's interesting, you know. And I do believe that's what happened. So I believe it's going to take people like you and me and Robin and everyone to speak and to keep talking about it and to normalize it. You know, I'm not a flake or talking to the fairies. Like, I'm a serious person. And I think the more that people see that normal mothers and, normal people who are on the board of management, etc., 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 are practicing this. And it has, like, Reiki saved my life. I have no doubt about that. It absolutely not only made the career that I really, really wanted, it actually saved me from myself, from my own madness and my own, like, addictions and my own complex kind of psychology. It held me straight in a very loving way. And I believe that it's, if it can help me, it can help everybody. And we need to just stand by it, like, in that way. So Reiki, I would say, in Ireland is very healthy and would be very kind of well regarded, be fairly mainstream. Like, people have become quite Americanized in the last 20 years, certainly. I went on a J1 visa in 1988 to Boston. And when I left Ireland, the shops closed at 5 o'clock, and they closed at lunchtime, and it was still very much the old world. Like, since then, this culture has become so Americanized. Everything's open 24 hours. You can buy your hot dogs and you're this, that. We are really like the 51st state in many ways, Ireland. In some ways to the detriment, but in some ways it helped us to open up and look outward and to stop hiding our shame, because Ireland's shame of the last 100 years since freedom, we did what all nations do. We had a very brutal civil war, and we locked up women. Like, women fought shoulder to shoulder with the men for Irish freedom. And the moment we got the 26 counties free anyway, they took the guns off the women and sent them home to make the sandwiches, literally, and then turned on one another in the civil war. So it's vicious, and Ireland has to face up to that. And we are bigger than just our short 50-year or 100-year history. Like, we're ancient out in the middle of the Atlantic. We're Atlantean beings, and it's been hard for Ireland, the 80s, the 90s, and the last 20 years, certainly, in facing up to there has been a number of, like, abuse reports into the Catholic Church of what was systematically happening in schools and orphanages, and and the truth has been kind of told, but it's very unpalatable. And we need to heal. We need to heal as a small little country, and we're only a few million people. We can heal, and we can be a beacon. I believe that in Ireland. So Reiki is very strong, and Irish people are very, very spiritually connected. Yeah. Whether they know it or not,
Well, I was fortunate to be there in 1997. And so probably before a lot of this occurred. And
just before,
of course, for me, as we talked before we started the recording and I think I've talked about it on this podcast before, that it was such a cellular memory and such an incredible draw that I didn't know what it was until I got to Ireland, and it was another shamanic journey with Tom Cowan, a Celtic shaman, and went with my husband, and I both went. And every day he'd look at me and he'd say, "Oh my gosh, you're just so Irish. I walk like them. I talk like them. My house colors were the same. My style was the same." And then we went to one place, speaking of sandwiches, which I know is a different context than you mean. It's like, you even make the same sandwiches. And I know it. And it was fascinating to have that internal pull finally answered. Yes. And also the suffering that also was a part of that cellular memory of the Irish people.
Yeah.
And found actually in my Reiki practice that I just didn't know it was going to happen, but you know how that can work in Reiki, where you know, suddenly you have people that are showing up with so many of the same or similar issues, and they come in, and lo and behold, it's also some of the things you're working through too, even though when you're with somebody else, it's all about them. There's
Yes.
still that element. And I found for almost 2 years that my clients were Irish Catholic, and the healing of the suffering was such a big part of it. And at the depth of it was a belief that suffering took you closer to God.
Yeah.
And that belief was so embedded, and a self-worth issue, and the belief that poverty could take you closer to God. And so then that evolved, speaking of the evolution of Reiki, and what I observed as you were talking about the divine feminine, is so much of it was also about our inability to receive.
Yes.
And the receiving is the piece of the divine feminine that I believe Reiki is really trying to teach us, because we receive it.
Yeah,
and as you mentioned originally, there's nothing we have to do for that. We don't have to earn it.
No.
We definitely don't have to suffer for it. No. And we are already worthy of it. And so it teaches it, and that it's simple. That's the other piece. It's simple, it's easy, it's gentle, it empowers while it heals. And that divine feminine quality of it, I found it really coming in, although I would have to say these are things I know now that I was learning about through that time period and through those sessions that were very personal to me. Because I did have that self-sacrificing, that piece of it. Yeah, there you go, right? You're like, yep, very Irish. And probably also very, human, as you keep saying. It's not exclusive to Irish people. But I do think that is a significant part of what is healing in a collective level.
Collectively, yeah, absolutely. Which is why, and they do, don't they? There is some indications that intergenerational trauma, that it can take 7 generations, and that your and my generation are the last generation of the Irish potato famine. So that we have a memory of actually starving. We have that memory within us, and of not being worthy. Imagine, of food. So
I'm very aware of that memory.
Yes. Yeah, I know. And I laugh when we go camping down the south of France, and on the last day, the French get into their car, and the Dutch get into their car, and the Spanish get into their car, and the French get into their car, and the Germans get into the car, and they all go home, and the Irish are running around with half little bags of things and say, do you want this? I'm not going to use it. And do you want this? And some, salad. And I'm like, oh my God, like, just go home. Because we
totally describe me.
And my Irish cousins, from New York, who they come and holiday with us, they say, we do the same. And I said, well, of course you do. You're the same. Our mothers are sisters. Of course you do. Yeah. So, but it is that kind of thing. And it's not about waste, not want not, but it is that deep ingrained thing, like that you say, that you have to suffer in order for it to matter, and the stories about, like almost self-flagellation to deserve, like, I'm not worthy to receive you. Like, they still have that in mass.
Horsehair shirts, the walking barefoot in the cold over the rocks.
Yes. Stop that. No. And that's actually why I love Glenstall Abbey down in Limerick, because lovely lovely plush carpets and nice heat, and you just, it's very fair and beautiful food, and they're lovely. They're Benedictine monks, so they greet you like as if they're meeting Christ. So, you know, and they don't say what's wrong with you or what you want or anything. They just talk to you and they engage you and they serve you your supper, etc., etc. And there's no kind of take off your socks and get up at 2:30 in the morning and walk backwards through a field, or none of that, which is what I like. Yeah. So we're changing things, but I can see it, Colleen. I mean, you're as Irish as I am. I can see it in your face, you know. Yeah.
It's hard to describe to people truly the level of cellular memory I have. I remember it. Like, I really remember it.
But it's much better now, Ireland.
Yes.
Much better.
And I do believe, like you say, that's part of who we are today. And in our older generations, what I feel like I can do right now is just continue to create stability, continue to create kindness.
Yeah.
Because, and that's so interesting that you say we are the 7th generation of the potato famine. I didn't realize that. But thinking of, my kids totally tease me all the time about, you know, the Irish potato farmer. And, you know, first thing I did with pandemic, I have potatoes.
Stocked up. Yes.
Oh yeah, they're stocked up. If you go into my pantry right now, I have them. And how, you know, it's the one thing I'm really good at cooking. And also, I always laugh about how, well, the way you cook is just put it in a pot with water.
Yeah.
Right? Put it in a pot with water, put potatoes in it, and you have food. And so, anyway, that's just a fascinating idea. And I do believe that that's where I am in my life right now, is holding that place and just staying stable. So these next generations can come in and make the changes that are here. They're happening. And I need to just be in the place of stability, support, kindness, teaching what I can, receiving, all of those things that we can do right now to make that difference for the change.
Yes, exactly. And, you know, Colleen, you're so vital, and I'm so vital, and Robin's so vital, and we're all so vital. You know, we're not finished, by the way.
No.
We're going to die with our boots on, darling. So, you know, so it's like, it's really, we just have to keep going and believe in the light, like believe in the promise that we know deep within us.
Believe in the way of love.
Yeah, believe in the way of love.
And all the different versions that that's expressed in. You know, it's in this case, it's, you know, as Kathleen wrote her book, and your case is in the Bridge of Now, and the next one that is coming through, and your course. Just, I love your course. Why don't you go ahead and just tell us how you teach that and when you teach that, because there are people who are going to want to connect with you. So how do they find you? When is the course?
That'll be lovely. Well, I'm running the second course starting, well, it started on the 11th of January as week 1, and it's running for 6 Wednesdays. So what it involves is an hour's just talk, where I just talk about the concept. And then we have an hour and a half kind of question and answers. And then I have kind of a PDF of work notes for the week, a 30-minute meditation that goes with the theme of the week, and they get the copy of the class. So it's that's done for 6 weeks. And then I have a page on Instagram where I keep in touch with everybody, and I do lives with people. So I've done lives on it, you know, about women and body image and just things like that can generally help people. So people who have attended the course are added to this private page where I just keep in touch with people, because there will be people who just saw me online on this course, as well as my Reiki Masters and people who've done their training with me. But it's equally, it's just common sense, isn't it? Isn't that what all healing
It
is?
sure is. Yeah.
Yeah. But we need reminding. I need reminding. We all need reminding. There's nobody. The moment we think we've cracked it, I think life has another lesson for us. There are no gurus. Like we have to keep walking our walk and doing our thing. So that's the way the course works. So I kind of say, okay, so by Valentine's Day, everybody be soaring. Everybody will have been through the treats. So so it's a 6-week course, and I think I'll run it again in November. So I've run it twice now, then I think I'll leave it until November.
I love that. Well, and the concepts are there when you then add Reiki energy to it.
Oh,
now that shifts the concepts into that inner connection with the truth that is there for you. Yes.
And your truth,
Yeah. And so you also teach Reiki classes.
I do. I teach. I'm actually, next weekend, I'm excited because I'm teaching my second Akasha Seichem group. So I just taught one group last year because Akasha Seichem is done with Golden TeraMai Reiki Masters. So, and I like to leave the Golden TeraMai Reiki Master, obviously, for a year or two for people. So I'm running that next weekend, and I'm very excited about that. It's just my second group. And then I am doing a Reiki Master in the middle of February, and I'm doing a Reiki 1 in the first weekend in February. So I'm teaching kind of all the time, and seeing people all the time as well. It's a completely devotional practice, isn't it? You never, okay, we take holidays, but we're all, once the light is on, I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's compelling, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's just so exciting to be part of bringing light and bringing beauty to earth, and who knew 30 years ago that this was what I would be doing? I certainly didn't.
Right.
Yeah.
Same here. Well, and then let's mention your website again.
It's alvacronin.com or thebridgeofnow.com. They both go to the same site. Yeah.
And we'll put that in the show notes too, in the description in the podcast, and on, this will be on YouTube and our podcast channels, all under Reiki Lifestyle. So we'll put the links there as well. But for those who are just listening, alvacronin.com. And then the same thing with your Instagram is at Alva11 and Facebook Alva Cronin. Yes. So people can find you in those ways as well. Okay. And Robin, do you want to add anything?
No, I think it was a fascinating conversation, and it's really great to.
And I know we could keep going. We'll have to do it again.
I know.
You and me, Colleen, could definitely light a fire and sit down and have a chat.
Or I'll meet you in Ireland.
Yeah. Anytime. Name the day. Oh. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciated meeting you and talking to you, and I love what you're doing. I just love this, the Reiki, Reiki lifestyle. I just love that, because that's it. Once Reiki finds you, it does become part of your lifestyle. It is part of who you are. And thank you so much for this.
Oh, you are so welcome. What a blessing. Really fun conversation. And thank you so much. And thank your cousin. Because your cousin, we actually both had Robin more than me, but we had a lot of health issues at the time your cousin was emailing, and we kept saying, please write back. Please write back. Okay. She was emailing to see if we could have you as a guest.
Sarah is great, because she must listen to you all of the time, you see, because but now I do. So that's good.
Yeah. So she was very persistent. And so once we were ready to get our schedule back on board, then we actually contacted you first. So
thank you so much. Thanks a million. It's been lovely to meet you, and continued success with everything you do. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Well, and for the rest of you, again, we're ReikiLifestyle.com. Same thing. We have animal Reiki classes coming up, and the Holy Fire Reiki classes coming up in February. So, oh, I should announce speaking of traveling, our Japan class with William Rand and myself, we are holding our Japan a Reiki Master class and a Karuna Reiki Master class on Mount Kurama in April. And you can find that information on reiki.org and or email us. But he and I are teaching together. They're 7-day classes on the mountain, and we've done this before, and it's phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
And Japan just opened in October to international travel. So Japan classes are on. So
Amazing. Best of luck with that. That's why I'd say that is just so powerful. So amazing.
yes, oh, it is. Yeah, thank you. Well, Alva, thank you so much again, and what a big blessing to connect with you. And I know we will meet again. So
Yeah.
many things to share. I
Yeah.
can feel it. All right, and many blessings to all of you listening. Robin, you want to say anything to finish up?
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye now.
Bye.